also invite back Rose Woolhouse from the Office for AI, and also somebody who was mentioned but not on stage, Eva Ignatuschtschenko. I'm going to have problems with this. Ignatuschtschenko, yes, who is head of digital standards and internet governance at DCMS. If the two of you would like to come and take a seat. What I would say about these microphones, I think it's sort of here, isn't it? So as opposed to here, which can get a little bit poppy. Yeah, oh, the guy at the back's going, yes, yes, yeah, okay. So, taking from, oh, I've just gone poppy there. Whoa, don't get overexcited. I've got a couple of questions that seem to be linked here. I don't know who's going to want to start on this. One is saying, NPL are leading the measurement side of AI, but how would you measure the trustworthiness of AI in terms of outcomes? And then we've got another one saying the danger of assuming we know what people would find trustworthy. There's a danger in that. Do we have good social science evidence on what people would actually trust, i.e. outcomes? Oh, Tim's nodding. You're going to start? Oh, no. Oh, go on.
So I was going to tackle the second question and just say, in terms of it's a good question, very good question. In terms of the standards process, what we try and do is bring in, as we mentioned, the various different stakeholders. So you have the consumer perspective. So does the consumer groups find this trustworthy? You have the academic perspective.
Thank you. Yep.
So the kinds of things you're saying about what's the research saying, having that fed in as well. So making sure it's not just business, government, it's the whole set of stakeholders that should be building it in.
Okay, thank you. And Stuart, did you want to add something?
Absolutely. Just on the metrology perspective or measurement, that's why we're very keen to make sure it's focused particularly around trustworthiness in machine learning. It's a very big topic and big challenge, so we approach it from the measurement perspective to be able to try to validate and verify the outputs or the outcomes of the measurement modality. I think there's a whole ethics, legal, assurance question that is not our role or remit, but can be addressed by everybody in this room and the community that will contribute to the hub.
Thank you. I should have said we're going to keep answers quite short here. Don't feel you have to mention if it's not your area, but if anybody else wants to add on this. Florian, yes?
Just very briefly on the second question around trust and trustworthiness. I think it's worth emphasizing and highlighting that we've defined the topic as trustworthiness rather than trust. Recognizing that trustworthiness is the foundational characteristics. So what we want to achieve is trust for the right reasons, trust for justified reasons, and what's needed for that is trustworthiness. That's the focus, rather than thinking about how do we get people to trust the system without thinking about the underlying properties.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much. Making a clear difference there with trustworthiness. Okay. Anything? No, they're not looking enthusiastic here. Right, I've got two questions that, if I can just find them. One was saying, okay, yes, does the Standards Hub currently include an exhaustive list of all AI standards? But then somebody else was saying, wouldn't it be helpful? Yeah, there are so many different standards on similar topics, it might be confusing. So will the hub aim to support only a few standard setting bodies only, especially ISO and IEC? So it's like two opposite sides of the coin there. Where do we sit?
So the current scope is focused on a specific, well, I'd say the focus, it's not an exclusive focus, but the focus is on a handful of SDOs. So that includes ISO IEC at the international level, ITU at the international level. At the European level, it includes ETSI, and going forward as work emerges, we'll also aim to include CEN and CENELEC. And then on top of that, of course, any national standards that BSI develop or relevant work from NPL. That's the initial scope because we had to define a focus to start with. We're of course aware that there's a lot of important work happening elsewhere. And so part of the strategy going forward is to think about how to evolve the database.
And presumably, if everybody gets involved and puts their comments in, that will help how things evolve. Yes, thank you. Eva.
Thank you. I think it's a really important point that we don't lose sight of what we're trying to achieve with an AI Standards Hub. It's not about having a comprehensive list of all the standards that are out there, and I think that would be really incomprehensible and a really, really difficult picture if we're thinking about the future of having kind of, the presentation we had earlier in terms of how the hub works, if we then see a list of hundreds and hundreds of standards, it's really hard to see through that to know where to start, which is why the way the hub is presented and the way it's set up is really to help users get onto that journey and really prioritize where they should be focusing first. And that's really one of our objectives as government with this hub, that we make sure it's actually helpful and it helps you understand the whole landscape rather than seeing the entire landscape, if that makes sense.
Thank you, thank you. Right, moving on to another question here. Well, it's a very simple one. It might be a yes or no answer. Were civil society stakeholders involved in the process of defining trustworthy AI?
So yes, they were very much involved in our broader engagement exercise. So civil society was just as prominent a group as all the other groups that we spoke about this morning. I will, of course, say that the definition I put on the slide, I refer to it as a definition. It's, of course, not as a set in stone definition. It's not a dictionary definition. It's meant to convey the sense of the breadth and the diverse issues that we think are within scope for our work. By all means, that's part of the community approach we want to take. If you think that there's something wrong with the definition that we just presented, we have a dedicated forum for Trustworthy AI on the website. It'd be great to hear any thoughts on what you think might be missing.
Anybody want to? It's interesting we talk about civil society, but that covers, it's almost like and everyone else, really, isn't it? So I suppose what's an interesting point here is if people feel that they want to be involved and they're not quite sure where their organisation sits or the people that they're representing sits, how would they get involved? What is the way to, two microphones moving. I love this. Having the microphone moving gives me, they don't have to wave or wink. They just lift the mic. So Florian's in there first.
Various ways. Obviously, everyone is welcome on the website. Contribute to the forums, join discussions that are happening there, introduce yourselves to other community members. There will be ways to get in touch with us directly. We'll have an email address. There'll be a contact form on the website. If you're unsure sort of where you fit in the taxonomy of stakeholder groups, feel free to reach out and we'll try to advise. But really where you fit in is much less important than getting involved. And so please don't worry about that categorization too much.
I've just had somebody wave the stop sign, but there's one that's really important. I'm just going to take this one, sorry. MC's prerogative. There are various words we've been hearing. We've been hearing regulation, we've been hearing standards, we've been hearing non-statutory, we've been hearing guidance. This question just says, is a non-statutory approach appropriate for ensuring accountability in AI? Maybe it's not fair, that's the one you can't answer quickly, but I just sense a feeling of unbalance between the words being used, of saying, let's be light touch, let's just give guidance, and at the other end we're saying, hey, we want to make sure this all works properly. Anybody, any lifting of the microphones here? Maybe they don't want to answer. Go on then, Stuart.
Just going to give my perspective is surely the hub should be the forum and the community to engage in that type of conversation, because very complex, very challenging to address, but the people in the room, the people online, the people that are going to engage with the hub should be asking those questions, and we should be attempting to answer them, I think.
Yeah. Rose, I'll let you get your word in.
Thank you. Just to say that that's definitely a strong theme that's coming through the stakeholder feedback that we've got so far on the AI regulation policy paper, and it's something that's under review. And yeah, we definitely agree with that using the hub and kind of other ways to have that conversation is also really important. But we're also very aware that, things are changing, the landscape is changing, the technology is changing, and sometimes that statutory side takes a bit longer. So it is quite important to look at across the different mechanisms, whether that be standards or, assurance or others.
I think those are wonderful answers, and actually you've thrown it back out to say, please engage. And I think I might be getting a sign now which says you should have stopped 2 minutes ago. So I'm going to say thank you very much indeed to our panel for those quick fire questions and answers. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.